Have you ever looked at your land and felt sad? Once upon a time there were flowers growing here, birds chirping, and now there is just dust and silence. That's what my garden looked like a month ago. Until one small but magical discovery. I poured this into dead dirt, and 3 days later it breathed again. I didn't want to believe it. My garden was gone. No matter how much I watered or weeded, the soil stayed hard, lifeless. It reminded me of a time I couldn't get out of bed. Not because of age, but because everything felt stuck. That's how my garden felt, stuck. Then I remembered something my late mother once did. She'd save the cloudy water after washing rice. She called it poor man's miracle. Out of curiosity, I fermented some rice water for 2 days, poured it into the dirt, and waited. 3 days later I saw movement. Worms. Green shoots. Like it heard a whisper from the past and decided to try again. No fertilizers. No tricks. Just the right microbes and time. It reminded me of something important. Nature doesn't rush. It heals when it's ready, if you give it what it truly needs. Fermented rice water. The secret your grandma never told you. They say everything old becomes new again. That couldn't be more true for this forgotten gardening trick. My grandmother never used fancy tools or store-bought fertilizer. She believed in what the earth gave us, and fermented rice water was one of her best-kept secrets. You take the water left from rinsing rice, let it sit in a warm spot and give it 2 days. It bubbles, it smells a little odd, but what it does to soil. But within days of using it, I saw life return to soil I thought was gone forever. And science backs it up. Fermented rice water feeds microbes, invites worms, and loosens hard earth. It doesn't just help plants grow. It wakes the soil up. I'll never forget watching butterflies return to my yard like they were old friends. If you've got tired dirt and a little patience, give it a try. Sometimes nature just needs a little nudge. Why worms are the first sign you're doing it right. I used to hate worms. As a kid, I'd scream if I saw one. But now, I love the sight of them. Because worms don't show up unless your soil is healthy. And when they do, they bring everything with them. After I poured that fermented rice water on my dead garden, I didn't expect much. But 2 mornings later, I saw movement. Dozens of earthworms crawling through the topsoil. That's when I knew something had changed. Worms aerate the soil, break down organic matter, and bring in nutrients. They're like nature's little engineers. When they move in, plants thrive. If you're gardening and you're not seeing worms, it's a red flag. But the good news, you can fix that. And it starts with giving your soil something real, like fermented rice water. It might seem too simple, but simplicity is often what works best. Don't chase products. Invite nature back. For no fertilizer, no problem. Just use this old trick. I was tired of spending money on garden products that promised miracles and delivered nothing. Fertilizers, sprays, boosters, each more expensive than the last. And still my garden struggled. Then I found something hiding in plain sight. Rice water. Not just plain rice water, but fermented rice water. It's not flashy. It doesn't come in a shiny bottle. But it works. Fermented rice water is loaded with nutrients and good bacteria. It feeds the microbes in your soil, and those microbes create the perfect environment for plants to thrive. I used it once a week for a month, and I swear my roses bloomed deeper, my tomatoes richer. What I learned is this: the best gardening isn't about buying more. It's about understanding more. The answers aren't always on a shelf, they might be in your kitchen sink. You don't need fancy. You need knowledge and a bit of patience. The microbial secret beneath your feet. It's easy to forget that soil is alive. It's not just dirt. It's a universe, tiny, invisible, and vital. When my garden died, I thought I'd failed. But the truth was, I'd forgotten about the real workers. Microbes. Fermented rice water isn't magic. It's microbial science. When rice water ferments, it becomes full of life. Bacteria, yeast, enzymes. These microscopic organisms eat organic matter and create nutrients that roots can absorb. They break the soil down and build it back up. When I poured it into my garden, I wasn't just adding water. I was adding an army. And that army woke the soil up. The smell changed. The texture softened. Worms moved in. Plants followed. So if your garden's struggling, don't blame the sun or the seed. Ask what's happening beneath the surface. Because once you feed the microbes, everything else falls into place. How patience turned my garden around. 3 days. That's how long it took for my garden to change. But those 3 days felt like a year. I stared at that patch of dry dirt every morning looking for something, anything. The truth is I almost gave up. But I waited. I watered gently, kept faith. And on the 3rd day I saw it, a single sprout. Tiny, green, brave. And behind it, a trail of earthworms weaving through loosened soil. It reminded me of a lesson I learned later in life. That growth doesn't happen on our timeline. Nature works in its own rhythm. It doesn't rush. It prepares. So if you're trying this method, fermented rice water or anything else, give it time. You won't see fireworks overnight. But if you stay the course, you just might witness a miracle. A garden doesn't bloom in a day. But when it does bloom, it makes every waiting moment worth it. A real gardener's hands and heart. I've got calluses on my palms and more backaches than I can count. But every single ache is worth it. Gardening isn't about perfection. It's about care. Real care. And that's something no chemical can replace. When I first tried fermented rice water, I didn't think it would work. But I was willing to try. That's what real gardeners do. We try, we fail, we adjust. We love the soil like it's part of the family. And you know what? The garden responded. Not because I was perfect, but because I was consistent. I listened. I learned. I stopped chasing big fixes and started trusting small, honest efforts. If your garden is struggling, start small. Start real. And remember, gardening is less about what you do and more about how much of your heart you pour into it. Because plants can feel that. I swear they can. Why quick fixes never last in the garden? I used to think if something didn't work in a week, it wasn't worth it. That mindset didn't come from gardening. It came from the world around me. Everything's fast now. Fast food. Fast answers. Fast results. But gardening humbles you. It teaches you that true growth takes time. When I first poured fermented rice water onto my soil, I expected instant results. I checked the dirt the next morning like I'd planted magic beans. Nothing. But I waited. On the 3rd day the worms came. On the 5th the first sprouts. By week 2 I had a new garden. This wasn't a miracle. It was nature responding the way it always has. Slow, deliberate, powerful. And that's the lesson. If you're always looking for a quick fix, the garden will teach you patience. And patience, my friend, is the most fruitful fertilizer of all. What my garden taught me about second chances. I looked at that patch of soil and saw failure. I blamed the heat, the weeds, myself. I almost walked away. But something about it felt familiar, not just as a gardener but as a person. That dry, cracked ground reminded me of moments in life where I felt just as empty, just as forgotten. And yet, one honest effort, a bit of fermented rice water, a few days of care, brought it back. That's when I realized, gardens aren't just places to grow food. They're places that teach us how to forgive ourselves, how to try again, how to believe in second chances. No matter how old you are, no matter how many seasons have passed, your garden can still bloom. And so can you. All it takes is the willingness to begin again. With love, with humility, and with just a little help from something as simple as rice water. Why your garden doesn't need to be big to be beautiful. When I downsized to a smaller home, I thought my gardening days were behind me. No yard. Just a few pots and a patch of sun. But I couldn't stay away. I started with a planter box. Some basil. A tomato vine. A bit of soil that looked dry and tired. Then I remembered that trick. Fermented rice water. I fed that soil once a week. Slowly it changed. The smell. Texture. It became alive again. I saw bees. A hummingbird. In a 6-foot space. And it reminded me that you don't need acres to grow beauty. A small space, loved deeply, grows things just as powerfully. So if you've got a little balcony, a windowsill, or just one pot, don't let size stop you. Let care guide you. Life finds a way no matter how small the space. Especially when the soil feels loved. The power of doing less, not more. I used to overdo it. Watered too often. Bought too many sprays. Planted too many seeds too close together. Then one season I stepped back. I had a sore back, truthfully. So I watered less. Did less. Just poured some fermented rice water, watched the soil, and waited. And wouldn't you know it, My garden did better that year than ever before. Why? Because nature doesn't need us to fuss. It needs us to trust. To support, not control. Fermented rice water isn't a hack. It's a helper. It wakes up the soil so it can do what it was made to do. Once that happens, our job is to get out of the way. Let it grow. Let it struggle a bit. Let it breathe. Less isn't lazy. Sometimes it's exactly what's needed. How this changed the way I see soil forever. Before, I thought soil was just dirt. Something you stand on. Something you dig into. But after using fermented rice water and watching my garden revive, I realized it's alive. Truly. It breathes, it feeds, it listens. I used to pour water onto the ground and hope for the best. But now, I think before I water. I check the soil. I smell it. I smell it. When it's healthy, it has a sweet, earthy scent. When it's dying, it smells flat, dusty, empty. Fermented rice water woke something up. Not just in the garden, but in me. I started to care about what I was standing on. I started to listen. It's funny. I set out to fix my garden. And somehow it fixed the way I see the world. It's not just dirt. It's the beginning of everything. The garden that waited for me. There's a corner of my yard that I ignored for years. Weeds took over. The soil dried out. I told myself it wasn't worth the effort. But one spring I walked past it and thought, what if? So I pulled the weeds, broke the hard clumps of earth, and instead of buying anything, I poured fermented rice water right into it. 3 days later, life, shoots, worms, a smell like spring rain. That forgotten corner became the pride of my yard. The garden I almost never gave a chance, waited for me. Sometimes things don't need us to fix them. They just need us to show up. There's probably a patch of your life like that too, waiting. Waiting for a bit of love, a bit of time. Waiting for you. Gardens forgive. So does life. Nature doesn't need saving. It needs trust. We act like we need to fix nature. Fertilize it. Protect it. Force it to grow. But when I poured fermented rice water into dead soil, I didn't fix anything. I just gave the soil what it was missing and stepped back. That's the beauty of this method. It doesn't overpower nature. It partners with it. The microbes in the rice water don't force change. They invite it. They offer nutrients and the soil decides what to do with them. And in that space, growth happens. Quietly. Naturally. We don't need to be heroes in our gardens. We just need to be listeners. Let nature do what it does best, when we give it the time, the space, and the trust. The day the butterflies came back, it wasn't the green leaves or the worms that brought tears to my eyes. It was the butterflies. I hadn't seen one in years, not in my yard. But the morning after my third application of fermented rice water, there they were. 1, then 3, then a dozen, dancing through my revived garden. It was like they remembered. That's when it hit me, gardening isn't just about growing plants. It's about bringing life back. Not just to the ground, but to the world around it. What we feed the soil feeds the world. And when you give it something as simple, as ancient, as humble as fermented rice water, you're giving nature a reason to come home. So when people ask me if it really works, I don't show them charts or graphs. I tell them about the butterflies,